Yeah, I kind of messed up. I did a video, but I didn't press record, so it kind of messed up. So let me try to redo this. Okay. We are the thoughts that we think. We are known for the things that we do, but we also are defined by the results of the things that we do. Whether you're successful or whether you fail, if you was a basketball player, you practice basketball, this is your philosophy. You studied basketball, your mindset, you have the mentality, but you lose. You are a loser. You're a failed basketball player. You can study music, you practice music, you think music, but your album doesn't sell. You don't get booked for shows. So the results of you doing music as a career, as a path, has failed because you didn't succeed in what you wanted to do. Or the success could have been you just doing music, but the world judges you based on the results of what you do and how many people support what you do. Not how good what you do is, because that's subjective. Some music is allegedly better than others, but some music sell better than others. So the sales of the music is the results of the music. So you are a failed musician. The same is true for philosophy. A philosophy is something that a group of people practice. When a group of people have a common ideology, that ideology becomes a philosophy. And that philosophy guides the people how to think, how to behave, how to interact with each other. Now, the results of how these people think, behave, and interact with each other is the purpose of the philosophy, because the philosophy always have an intended purpose. We have the preamble. They say we hold these truths to be self-evident that all people are created equal with certain inalienable rights due by their creator. We have like other philosophies like Christianity, who say Jesus Christ is God and you get to the kingdom through Jesus Christ. We have like philosophies on these streets that black people follow, saying they're about greater corporations, they're about growth in this, I ain't gonna mention that, and they're about brotherly love, overcoming oppression, stuff like that. Now, those are great things, but we look at the results of the people following those philosophies to define and determine if those philosophies have failed. Now, when you look at the people on the West Coast, East Coast, who practice those colors, blue and red colors, right? And they say, your color is the wrong color, therefore you must die. Now, in Chicago, they say, your hat is turned the wrong way, you must die. We don't know you, you gotta die. You gotta hold this pistol, you gotta sell these drugs, you go to jail. You go out there, retaliate, and blast, you go to jail. Now, they talking about greater corporations and all of these good things in their creed and whatnot, but the results of their philosophy, meaning the practice of the people who's following it, led to death and destruction, annihilation. So when you look at the results of the people practicing this philosophy, you gotta say, these results doesn't add up to the things that was mentioned in the preambles. Or maybe that was the results, maybe that was the purpose, but regardless of what the intention is, the purpose is defined by the results. If the results were that black men have been killed, black men have been thrown in prison, therefore that's the purpose of the philosophy. And if this continues over and over, year after year, decade after decade, generation after generation of different children, grandchildren following this philosophy, and it's spreading all over the country, and if the same results is happening, either you're insane or this is the purpose of the philosophy. And we look at hip hop, rap music, right? We got the music promoting murder, drug selling, Now, if the purpose of the music is to uplift, is to feel good, but the music influences behavior. So the music becomes a philosophy. So if the behavior that's being influenced in the music is blasting and killing the people in your neighborhood, committing adultery with the people that you know, or doing like wicked evil deeds, and when you do these evil deeds, you getting killed and going to prison. The philosophy, if you saying the philosophy was about good, but the results is bad, we have to redefine and determine that the philosophy have been a failure because it leads to death and destruction. We have the Black Greeks who believed that they was going to get the 10% talented 10% of black people. They were going to educate them, give them all of the money, the resources, and they was going to lead us to prosperity and salvation. And their idea of salvation and prosperity was to bring us together in integration with all of the races. Now, they did this at the expense of 90% of black people. Starved them, put them in poverty, didn't help them. And we integrated, and then we lost even more. We're at a net loss, 60 years holding on to this philosophy, voting like Martin Luther King was a preacher, dealing with politicians about policy. Every year, the black church is the nest of politicians asking the black people for their vote, prostituting themselves for the vote. Now, a lot of young black people don't want nothing to do with the church because the church is too heavily involved with dirty politics. Even the Nation of Islam, Farrakhan is always talking about politics, politicians, the current events. He's not really talking about what the Nation of Islam was really about, which was bringing black people together as an independent nation, separating from the white man, and doing for self. Now, this philosophy was greatly successful until the death of Elijah Muhammad in 1965. Now, we have two philosophies that were successes: black nationalism and the Nation of Islam, which were black nationalists. And both of those had the same idea of doing for self, pulling yourself up from your own bootstraps, pulling your resource together, separation. Booker T. Washington was a stark proponent of separating from the white people. So separation. We see the philosophy that actually worked, and we see the philosophies that failed. And the philosophies that actually worked were pretty much abandoned. Nobody follows Booker T. Washington. They call him a sellout, Uncle Tom. Nobody follows Elijah Muhammad. They follow Farrakhan. And Farrakhan is just a politician. He doesn't want to hand over the mantle to a younger man or younger person to be the leader. He's almost 100 years old, still trying to lead, telling us nonsense about Trump and whatever politics he's talking about. But he's not really trying to tell the so-called Negro to do for self and to separate from the oppressor. And now the United States philosophy said that all people are created equal, with certain rights due by their creator. Yet they practice racism, slavery, oppression, brutality. Now, if you look at the results of the philosophy of the United States, which was genocide of the natives, enslaving the blacks, conquering countries in the world, police murders, lynchings, tortures, you would say the Constitution was a failure. The philosophy of the United States has failed. But maybe, if you look at it from a different perspective, maybe it didn't fail. Maybe the purpose of these black organizations, or the black hip-hop music, or the purpose of the United States was to cause massive death, or the purpose of the Black Greeks, how they actually promoted abortions, they promoted and practiced mass genocide against black people. Maybe this was the purpose, but regardless if it wasn't the intended purpose or unintended purpose, the results determines that it was the purpose. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with abandoning a philosophy that it is detrimental to your own survival. Like, every living creature has a right to survive, to self-preservation. But if your philosophy determines or requires you to be annihilated systematically, intentionally, and you know the annihilation is there, it's a mathematical certainty that the annihilation will happen. Because if you keep doing the same thing, eventually you're going to be the one that's going to be killed or thrown in prison. It's only the law of averages. If you keep doing the thing over and over, you're going to be the victim of it. Holding the guns, selling the drugs, shooting to kill. You're going to get either locked up for murder, or you're going to get murdered, or you're going to get locked up for drug selling. You're not going to get lucky every day. Nobody's lucky. You're going to get done in following this philosophy. So it's nothing wrong with abandoning a philosophy that has failed you. A philosophy should serve you, serve your purposes, and allow you to achieve your purposes. But the founders of the philosophy purpose, in my opinion, was to sacrifice you. It was to destroy you. And you believed the surface of the philosophy, but you didn't look at the actual practice of the philosophy and the results of that practice. Eventually, you're going to be exterminated if you're just killing each other up because of the wrong, your head is turned the wrong way, and you got on the wrong colors, or you just don't like the person because you don't know the person, or eventually you're going to be annihilated, exterminated. You're going to be in jail for murder, or you're going to be murdered by practicing the methods of the philosophy. Every philosophy has a method. Now we have Christianity, which has many branches. Some branches believe that the way to salvation is by accepting Jesus Christ. Other branches believe that the way to salvation is accepting Jesus Christ and doing righteous deeds. Some philosophies believe that the only way to salvation is to give the church money. Just pay the church and you good. Now you look at the results of those methodologies, right? The ones who just give the church money, who don't change their activities, they seem to have like more destruction, more misery in their congregations, because the righteous deeds is not really required. It's just giving the church money. Like, you look at mafia movies, like this, the Catholic Church, who just say give us money. Also, some Baptist churches, who just say give us the money, and they got a strip club across the street. But those philosophies, you don't necessarily have to follow that philosophy, because the Bible is to be interpreted, because that's the legendary foundation of all of the philosophies of Christianity. And you look at the so-called Constitution, and you look at the people who's practicing it. The so-called American Constitution came from the Iroquois Confederacy, a group of Native American tribes, nations that got together against the Algonquins. And the United States government adopted the Constitution, but they never practiced the ideology and the philosophy of the Constitution. It was just something they used to actually conquer America, uniting the Caucasian states, having representatives and delegates, and creating law, creating policies and ordinances that you could actually enforce. You learned that from the Iroquois. You used it for your own purposes, but the results of the philosophy, that the philosophy itself wasn't about that. But the results of your practice of the philosophy was about exterminating people and conquering their land. So we know things by the results of it. Like Jesus say, we know the tree by the fruit it bears. Regardless of how the tree looked, you look at what it produces. And we have the right to not follow a philosophy. Or we could create our own philosophy. Because a philosophy is just a means to an end. It's a way to get from point A to point B as a group, and a way for us to actually conduct ourselves in the world, how we treat each other as members, and how we actually function with non-members, and how we actually conduct ourselves in every aspects of life, when it comes to governance, when it comes to agriculture, when it comes to science, when it comes to finance, when it comes to religion, when it comes to all interactions, social, non-social. The philosophy is just a vehicle used to help us get there in a civilized manner. But if that philosophy have crashed and everybody in the car has died, it's time for the survivors to look for a better vehicle. A car that will actually have more control, that you have more control and more faith in it, that you're going to get from point A to point B alive. And these philosophies that us black people have been following have been causing us massive amounts of death and poverty and misery. So it's time to abandon these philosophies. And there's many philosophies that I didn't even mention. A lot of philosophies needs to be analyzed and judged. And we judge the philosophies by the results of the philosophies. Whether we should eliminate them or enhance them. Because not all philosophies are detrimental. Not all philosophies should be thrown in the garbage, but some need to be totally obliterated. But that's about it. I'm not going to be rambling on.